You are now listening to the Trebla Art Podcast. What's up, everybody? It's Albert Gonzales. Today's episode, I invited my good friend, Matt Tumlinson. Those of you that might not be too familiar with his work, probably already seen his work. If you've been on the St. Mary's Strip, if you're partying pretty hard, which everyone does on the Strip, you probably already stopped to take a picture with his infamous King George.
Man. Yeah.
King George mural.
George Bush.
Yeah.
If you've had too much to drink at St. Mary's.
True. So, Matt, we met almost a year ago, or no, probably a little bit more.
Yeah, about like almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah, so we met about a year ago. You had reached out to me about, just talking about like studio spaces, because you were interested in getting into the Houseman Millworks, or I guess like tell the people about who you were, and I think you probably have a better idea of how things kind of worked out and how we met.
Well, I just had a kid, which you're about to, so
yeah.
you kind of empathize with this, but I just had a kid and I was trying to work from my home studio, and I was looking for a place outside of the house to work. And I saw the Millworks. I was kind of familiar with it a little bit, but I just didn't know. I was like kind of apprehensive, about, is it really worth, having somewhere? And
yeah.
So I reached out to you. You were, one of the San Antonio artists that I'd heard of and had seen around town. I'd seen your murals and your wabi-sabi stuff. And so I was like, I don't know, like I'll slide into your DMs. Is that what the kids say?
Yeah.
And then, and you got back with me, and I was like, it seems like pretty cool place. So yeah, I'm real happy with Millworks and everything. So
so now you've been there for about a year. I think just a couple of months after we met, because you reached out to me. We had lunch. We went to, what was the name of the restaurant?
Garcia's, man.
Yeah, okay. You took me to Garcia's.
Plug in there, man.
Yeah, so if you've never been to Garcia's, that's where me and Matt had lunch, and that's where we kind of talked about what we do, what I do, and got to know each other a lot better. Funny thing too, right across the street, you have a mural on the second floor of the building right across the street from Garcia's.
Yeah, that's how I found out about Garcia's. I went up there and I was painting, it's like March or something. I was up there painting this mural, and then I went and ate lunch at Garcia's and had like 2 helpings of brisket tacos.
Yeah.
And then
the enchiladas were pretty bomb too. I think that's what I ate when we went there. So those enchiladas were.
Yeah, don't try to paint a mural after you eat too many of them, though, man. They were.
Yeah. I kind of. I've done that before, working on the burger culture murals that are inside, and the Spurs mural too. That's right outside. But the owner. The owners actually own Southtown Pizzeria, which is right across the street. So for about like a month, I was practically living inside burger culture, because I was doing all those different murals inside, and they would bring me over like a large pizza almost every day. And I remember one night I didn't even sleep, and I'm there painting till the morning, and the owner comes with like this large pizza. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, like if I eat just enough, like I'll have energy to just like keep going. But the pizza was so good, I ate like maybe like 4 or 5 slices, and I was out, dude.
Out
yeah, I was out. So like I definitely know what you mean by like not eating too much food.
Well, the perks of the job, though, man. If you get free food out of it, that's always a bonus.
You recently started getting a lot of publicity on the murals that you've the murals outside of San Antonio are getting like a lot of publicity, and that's pretty dope, because I remember when I met you, you were telling me about a little bit about this concept of what you were doing. I thought that was like super cool, and then now you're getting like a lot of publicity. I see a lot of people tagging you in these photos and stuff. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, like building up your body of work. It's like you have to have work to show people, and like especially with the murals, it's kind of hard to convince somebody to let them, or try to convince somebody to let you paint their wall. And so if you do it somewhere like Rankin out in West Texas where nobody sees it, it's like you kind of make all your mistakes out there, and I did the best I could, but there's a lot of stuff like painting walls. It's a lot different than painting other stuff that you kind of like earn your stripes there and then come back here, and it's like, okay, good. I'm glad I didn't do this
Because
in the city of 1 million people.
Tell the people about the one that I saw. The one that you were like, yeah, I'm gonna put this one up with the officer and the kid.
Oh yeah, so I'm probably incriminating myself. But so I did. It's like this DPS like state trooper, and he's like pulling over this little kid, and he's on a big wheel, and the little kid's like bawling, and the DPS guy's writing him a ticket. And I don't know if I told you this, but like the weird thing is, I get out there, and I meet the DPS trooper that's stationed in this little town.
Nice.
And he kind of looks like the guy that I drew, just like off the top of my head. And he was freaking out. He's like, how they hired this like gunman to come in here and like just sketch me out, like when I wasn't looking. Like he was tripping. But I was like, no, I just think this is all, you guys all have crew cuts and that same look. Like,
yeah,
you all kind of look the same. Like, but no, he was really cool about it. He really liked it, which was like, I was like kind of on the fence, like, I don't know, is this disrespectful or? But he was like, no, man, I love it. This is great. So,
because was that the person that? Because I know one of the patrol officers actually shared it on Instagram.
Yeah, that was the guy. I won't share his name, but he was a really cool guy.
That's cool, dude.
But yeah, he really liked it, and I was like, okay, good. Like I got family that's DPS, and I was like, all right. I ran it by them first, just to be like, I don't know, is this cool? Like, do you think it's funny? If not, and they were like, oh, that's hilarious.
Nice, dude. Oh, that's cool that it worked out, because sometimes there's some situations where it's
I mean, like you had your what was it, Pop for President thing.
Dude, don't get me started on that. Yeah, but yeah, that's I think as artists, right, and I think as citizens of the U.S., the whole freedom of speech. Like I think a lot of people take it for granted sometimes that like we have that privilege, and I think when it comes to our art, it's a sensitive topic for me, just because I was really upset during that whole situation. But it got me a lot of publicity, which was cool. But I wish it would have stayed up, if anything. But everything kind of works out.
I guess that's public art too, though. It's one thing if it's in your house, but if it's on somebody else's business, it's kind of like we're gonna sell less because that's up there, but.
How much less can you sell? Right?
I don't know.
You have so many people that are like supportive, and so many people that like,
It's like you want to talk to people. Like I'm not like let's have a conversation about it. Like,
and that's what. Okay, that was the whole concept. When I brought up the idea, like, what if we put this, and this conversation happened where it's like, oh well. What if it makes people upset? And I was like, well, really, it should be about the conversation. Like, why Pop for president? Why, like, what has Pop said or what has Pop done? But it was more on his, comments, about, what he thought. And, I don't know. People were just a little too sensitive
that's art,
sometimes.
Though, man. Like, people bring their own opinions and backstories to the artwork, and they say, well, it's this. And you go, well, that's open to debate. Like, that's your opinion, and your opinion is your opinion. But let's talk about it. Like,
but to be so upset, where like you go and complain, saying like you're gonna lose business, you're gonna lose my business because I don't agree with what this says. Like that's
I don't know, man. There's just such a whole like that stuff just blows over so quick. Like people are just offended, and then like
forget about it next week.
Dude, the George Strait mural that I did, it was bizarre. Like, the feedback I got, it came out, and George Strait sees it, right? And he shares it on his platform, like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And it was, like, crazy, the night and day difference between Facebook and Instagram. Where Instagram, everybody was like, oh, this is cool. Like, it kind of looks like George Bush, and, it's... but it was mostly overwhelmingly positive, where people are like, yeah, let's go take a picture. This is great. Like, how cool. Everybody's sharing it. And then you go over, like, you're riding high, and then you go over to Facebook, and it's like nothing but people just shitting all over it. They're just like, this is terrible. You would have thought I came over to their house and like kicked their dog. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry I ruined your day. It's just I didn't mean to. Like, it was crazy, just like how different it was, and I don't know.
I think Facebook has a lot of trolls too. Well, not that they're all people just trolling, but like people are really quick to just like be negative on Facebook. I think
I don't want to generalize, but just, you know, looking at that little thumbnail picture, it was a lot of like, you could tell like people that take pictures from their camera on their computer from like down low, where it's just all double chin.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, this guy doesn't have a whole lot else going on.
Yeah, you could. I think that you can kind of tell a lot about a person's profile pic on there.
It's like, dude, and yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you have like a profile picture on your Facebook and you've used your webcam and it's not that good quality, you might want to update it. Take a selfie. It's probably helps a little bit better. So
I'm extremely judgmental that way. I can't help it. I'm like, I can probably tell.
What's today? It's like the day and age that we live in, right? Like before, it's like, oh, you actually shake someone's hand, and that's like, yeah, he's a pretty good guy by his handshake. Now it's just like, oh, the profile picture like tells a lot. But then also the stuff that you post, and like we live in a really interesting time.
I just try really hard, or as best as I can, not to like have somebody just do a snap judgment on who I am at first glance. And so, I don't know, whenever you see somebody, it's like, oh man, like I can already tell where you vacation just from 5 seconds looking at your picture. Like,
yeah, I try to keep all my personal stuff off of social media. And just keep anything that social media is just business. Like it's a great resource, it's a great tool to use.
It's awesome for business.
But as far as like personal wise, like yeah, it's cool to keep up with friends and stuff like that. But I ain't trying to share like
Well, I think that's where people get like wrapped up in too much. Like for an aspiring artist, it's awesome. Like people literally all over the world can see your stuff. But, likes don't necessarily translate to sales and vice versa. Like, likes don't necessarily translate to, like, personal affirmation,
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I just have to keep telling myself that. Like, this doesn't mean anything. Like, make sales, likes are pretty fickle,
Yeah, I think one way that it's helped me is by reaching out to the people who do like my stuff. Because I think, as business professionals, right, you're not just going to look at a like and be like, oh, okay, like that's it. But I use it as an opportunity to know, like in any sales, right? Like you have your leads, and I see Instagram more as like, if someone likes something, then hey, that's a potential lead. Like if I could reach out to this person and make some sort of connection or build some sort of relationship with that person, this person might know someone,
That's the good side of social media.
Yeah, that's the good side. But
and you do a very good job of that. I look at your stuff and I'm like, I need to like do more of that. Like, here's my stuff. Like, and not in a pushy way. I'm not saying you're doing it in a pushy way, but just like, hey, like it's one thing to like my stuff, but come on out. Like, come tour the studio. Come check out my stuff. Like, let's talk. Like get the conversation going. And
it takes a lot of time. People might think it's easy, but it's really taking the time to really reach out and make those connections with people. If you have like a social anxiety, it's breaking that comfort and kind of getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's what leads to success is being able to get outside your comfort zone. Numerous times where you could actually start learning more about the failures, the successes, and just evaluating yourself and using that information to move forward. But so tell people a little bit more about your background, like where you're from.
So I was born in San Antonio, but my parents were teachers and coaches, and they're kind of transient by nature. They kind of go to wherever they can get hired on. And I grew up in a small town around Abilene. About 2,000 people, I tried. I don't know. I guess I always drew and was creative, but I never really, saw it as an avenue to. It was never really a viable career. I guess it was always just like almost like a party trick. Like, yeah, I could draw, and I'm sure you're the same way. Like, you're probably the kid in school that. Like, oh, that's the kid that is a good drawer. Isn't a drawer. And, and then, so I graduated college in 2012 and moved down here. and had a bunch of just random kind of odd jobs, which, you know, I think is vital for any kind of like artistic growth, is like just get as much different perspective and, you know, get out there and make yourself just a little uncomfortable, get in over your head. Like, you know, you definitely are, you know, to me, it makes it more interesting to talk to you at parties whenever you've got some, you know, some cool things that you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so had a bunch of weird random jobs, and I think it was 2014. I was working with bullet casings. I get my shell casings from a gun range here on the south side, and I wanted to kind of incorporate that into artwork as kind of a metaphor for, you know, kind of a controversial subject. But I started kind of tinkering with those and painting, and I didn't really have any idea, you know, what it could be, I guess. But I knew I kind of had a plan. I said, okay, by the end of this year, my goal is to get in a gallery of some kind, like sell some of my work in a gallery or a store or whatever. And on my days off, I went up to Fredericksburg, and I dressed in a really nice suit, and I went all the way, like all these galleries that were way nicer than I had any business being in. You know, like there's like $50,000 paintings, and I walk in.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to buy my stuff? And but I went, I don't know, there's probably 20 galleries. I went to all of them, got shot down in all of them but one, and they gave me a maybe, and I just hounded them, and I was like, hey, this is my stuff. And every time I produced something new, I'd show them. And finally, they gave me, like, it wasn't a yes, but I think I was just so persistent. I was like, all right, I'm there. Like, I'll be here tomorrow to show you my thing. And they were like, yeah, I guess we'll be here. And showed up, and they liked it. And then I got my first gallery. And then I think 4 months later, I had enough just kind of small jobs that added up. I was like, I really think I can quit and pursue this full time. And I jumped in with both feet, and that was almost 5 years ago, like this month, I think, is whenever I did it. So, yeah, and it was super scary then, but, yeah, I don't know, it was...
So what was the feeling like when you... Because I think a lot of people get shut down when they hear like a maybe, because we take that as like a negative, as like a no, when really a maybe's still, it's not a yes or a no. But I think, you know, I had a similar situation where the person didn't tell me no. They were more like, we'll keep an eye on you, just keep us updated with, you know, what you're doing. And eventually it turned into, you know, a show in Austin, and, you know, now I might have more possibilities. But like, what was the feeling like when they told you, okay, like, come in, or, you know, bring some artwork? Like, how did you feel? How'd that make you feel?
I mean, it was whenever you get over the fear of being rejected, like you just have to get used to, like, just people rejecting you. Like, and once you realize, like, oh, good, like, I'm still here. Like, my ego's bruised, but I'm that much closer to a yes every time I get told no. You know, whenever you do get that maybe, it totally validates you. Like, it makes you forget all the no's. You're like, okay, maybe I am doing something right. And, you know, I think listening to feedback is definitely, like, crucial, you know. And anytime you get told maybe, I almost feel like that's kind of a way that people say, like, I make them give me a definite yes or no. And I don't know. I think that whenever you, like, show somebody how persistent you can be, like, I think we're worried about coming off as annoying, but a lot of times it makes whoever you're trying to get your artwork in with, I think a lot of times it says, like, oh, this guy is tenacious. Like, he's in it for the long haul. Yeah. Like, he's not here just, like, he's not going to be one of those guys that just stops giving me work after a month. Like, he's, like, here and
he wants to be successful.
Yeah. Like, you know, and I think that goes with anything, not just art, but I don't know. And I think that really separates a lot of people. It's really simple, but just, I don't know. Just.
Have you ever read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? Mm-mm. Well, you know, the whole, you know, not taking no for an answer and being tenacious, being persistent. There's a part of the book where, you know, this guy wants a position, or this girl wants a position, and they tell her no like over 8 times, but you know, the 9th time they're like, all right, come in, work, work for us. It's like, you know, if you quit,
I mean, don't you want that person on your side? Like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. And a lot of times galleries would say stuff or like, you know, like, that's kind of a cheap frame, or, you know, this looks kind of shoddy, or like, this doesn't really meet our level of whatever. And, you know, it sucks, and you're like kind of mad, and you're like, but once you like kind of take that and look at it from their perspective, you're like, okay, I can use this. Mm-hmm. And if I fix these little things, then, you know, I could, like, then they can consider me. But you know, that's part of it, just having something to aim at, you know.
Mm-hmm. Like, always just changing it up and reevaluating.
Yeah, just, you know, it's one thing if you're like, I just don't know why nobody likes my work. But if somebody can give you some concrete examples of what you can do to change, it's like, all right, great. And I changed that, and, you know, I'm that much closer to selling. And I don't know. I guess you got to kind of be careful. You know, you don't want to change up your voice, but I guess I'm speaking more of just presentation-wise, which I think a lot of galleries look at, like, is this thrown together, or is it, like, really crafted?
Yeah, that's true. So you're saying how you started working with the bullet casings, and how long have you been doing that for?
So I guess probably 2000, I don't know, like summer 2010, 2011 maybe.
Okay.
I was going to school up in Lubbock, and my uncle's the one that actually owns the gun range. And I'm really, like, at the time especially, I wasn't a gun person at all. Like, despite having grown up where I did, like, I was like, you know, I was around it, but I wasn't
into it.
Yeah, like, it just wasn't, like, you know, like, my family didn't own guns, and so I was like, I'd go, but it was mostly just to go hang out and drink beer, kind of, you know, just be a part of it, so you weren't sitting at home. But so he calls me, it's like, hey, you know, if you want a summer job, you know, I know you don't know much about guns, we're going to give you the outside job, cleaning stuff, and, you know, the grunt labor guy. And I was like, that's fine. And so I started working, and at the gun range, whenever, you know, there's these bays and people shoot, and then underneath the bay, there's these grates, and the shell casings, whenever you fire a pistol, the shell casing comes off and it lands underneath there. And it was my job to, like, go scoop all this stuff up. And so I kind of saw my own vision of firearms, like, changing, like, sort of my perspective of them being this, you know, dangerous, you know, like, scourge on society. And then to kind of see people come in and, like, okay, well, these are people that are responsible gun owners, and you know, they're very, very extremely careful with it, and they're showing their kids how to shoot these things in responsible ways. Then you also have people that are like, oh yeah, we need stricter gun laws for that guy in particular. And then, you know, you get, like, tourists that come in too, want to do the whole Texas thing, and so you, like, kind of get their perspective of, like, how firearms are seen throughout the world, which is kind of cool. And so I just thought it was interesting that, like, you take, like, this one little piece of brass, and it, like, it can evoke so many, like, this whole range of emotions just based on your background and where you're from and your experience around it. And so initially I was kind of playing around trying to figure out what would be a good way to incorporate that into artwork. I was thinking, like, sculpture, and it just wasn't working out. Like, I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And then finally I was like, well, if I laid them all flat, I could probably paint on them. Like, I knew enough about painting and stuff that I think I could paint on them rather than sculpt. And so, yeah, I think probably from the very first project with bullet casings to essentially what I do now, where I lay them all flat and paint over the top, it was probably a 2-year process. But
dang. So what was one of the first paintings that you did on the shells?
It was Quanah Parker. It was the Comanche chief Quanah Parker, and I just got done reading a book about him, and it was like his story is extremely interesting.
Yeah, being Comanche myself, like Quanah Parker's like not just for the Comanche, but just all Native Americans did a lot.
Yeah, and he's like I don't know, it was like he was like not afraid to be violent, but he wasn't necessarily defined by it, which was kind of what I found interesting is that he like was able to like have a foot in both the white man and the Native American world and kind of be fluent in both of those and kind of say like, look, we're not going to get screwed over like we have been, but also like be a champion for Native American rights. And it was, I don't know, it was just kind of
the first Native American diplomat.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it was, he was to me, it was kind of the face of being two things at once. And so that's kind of why I thought he would be a good face for that. And so, yeah, that was the first one. I think I'm on like, I don't know how many I've done at this point, but it's a lot.
You got a number of years like the Wabi Sabi, dude. You're probably in like the thousands already.
Yeah, there's a lot of Texas flags in there that you paint. You have all these deep conversations, and then you're like, yeah, but can you put a Texas flag on it? You're like, I guess. So,
man, how many, like, if it's cool for me to ask, like, how many of the Texas flags with the ammo, with the shells, have you sent out of Texas?
I don't know. There's a lot of like homesick Texans, I think, but I don't know. That's a good question. I know for sure there's probably a dozen.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's always, it keeps it interesting. Like when somebody always asks you for something different, they're like, hey, can you paint this on there? And I'm like, I'm usually much more agreeable like later in the month when I haven't sold as much. I'm like, yeah, probably. I could do that.
Yeah. I just got a commission today, actually. A friend of mine that I grew up with reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and huge Raiders fan.
No,
huge Raiders
Wabi Sabi Raiders.
No, actually, a couple of years ago, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, my Spurs paintings were like really big, and I think they still are. I still get commissions from them too, but it's been like maybe since the beginning of my career in 2015, like late 2014, where I was commissioned to do a football player or a football team painting. And
was that when they were talking about moving down here?
I think so. And it wasn't for a Raiders commission, but it was for like a Cowboys and a Steelers. But he recently commissioned me for a Raiders painting commission, and I hadn't done one in so long of a football team. But I've had all these new ideas just kind of, floating around, where now I'm excited to kind of, take that approach. And, I was talking to him about it this morning. It's like, man, like that might be, a whole new avenue that might be successful. Because I think, as artists, we do what we like when we do what makes us, money, which, we have to because it's how we make a living. But, to try new things and to have those things work, it's like the best feeling. Yeah.
Whenever you're like, I don't know, I don't know if people are going to like it, and then to have those instincts validated, that's always a good feeling.
So it must have been really good for you when people like fell in love with your casings, especially, kind of being really like iffy about it. I'm pretty sure when you...
Yeah, man. Like anytime, I don't know, like my family's always supportive of everything that I've done, which I'm very fortunate. But growing up, there wasn't any examples of... Growing up, I thought there was like 5 things that you could be. I was like, okay, well, I can be a teacher / coach, doctor, lawyer, work for the city, or I don't know, be an oil guy somewhere.
Yeah.
And realistically, there's just, I didn't know anybody that made a living as an artist. I knew people that were artistic, but it was like what they did when they weren't.
They did it more as a hobby.
Yeah, and so, whenever I got older and you start seeing people that are, they're not Banksy, they're not, these huge names out there. It's like, no, you can still be the you can make a living on it. Like, you're not going to be, like, selling out stadium type big, but, you can still make a living on it, And so whenever you start seeing somebody like that, it's a much more attainable goal than like, you know, than what you're led to believe. It's like, oh, I can make a living doing this, and I don't know. And you get some paychecks sometimes after you have enough of those jobs where you're just sweating your ass off somewhere, and you're like, holy crap, I made the same amount sitting here on my butt painting for 2 hours than I did, you know, after a week, you know, digging something up, you know, like
or helping someone else achieve their dream.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, that's like 16 lawns that I just mowed, but I was just sitting here doing something that I enjoyed doing, and it was fun.
So what was that moment for you? Like when you sold a painting that was equivalent to like either a full day's work, or, you know, what painting was that, or what was that like?
Oh man, that's a good question. I know in 2013 I don't know, there's so much weird stuff that I did early on that I haven't done anything like since, but it was like this, it was like a Texas, like, pasture, like, bluebonnet scene, but it was, like, kind of stylized, like, graffiti, and then I outlined everything in black, like, clouds and the road and everything, and it wasn't unlike, like, kind of your black outlines in the wabi-sabi, but I put it up on Facebook, and, you know, like, a friend of a friend saw it, and they were like, what do you want for that? And I was like, I don't know, $700, thinking there's no way. And she was like, yeah, that's great. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she was in Houston, and I woke my wife up, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta go to Houston to deliver this thing. Like, it was a huge deal. And so I went, drove it there, installed it, which I would never do. Like, I was like, brought all my screwdrivers and hooks and everything, and I was just like,
and when you saw your first $700 painting, you go and saw that.
Yeah, I was like blown away that somebody, like, I called my parents, and they were like, you sold a painting? I was like, yeah, for $700. Like, oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, there might be some money in this.
So how was your parents' reaction when I guess, did you tell them, like, hey, I'm going to do this full time? Or was it like, hey, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like a weird. It was kind of like. I guess I just had to show them. I guess that it can be done, and they've always been supportive. But it was, I think, being a parent now, I think I see it a little bit better. Of like, they weren't ever discouraging, but it was more of like, we want you to like have something to fall back on, you know, like art's good, but there's a good chance it's not going to be steady, and you know, you just never know. So, you know, have your day job, but, you know, also follow your dreams, but have your day job.
Yeah.
And then once it got to the point where it's like the part-time job and the art gigs start piling up to the point where you're like, I really wish I had more time to keep. I'm getting behind on this artwork. It's taking me forever, and then you start like weighing it, and you're like, I really could quit and just do this full time and make a living off of it. But, you know, you may only have like a month or so of work, and you know, after that. But it's been 5 years of that. You know, every month I think, oh, well, I'm gonna have to get a real job, and then, you know, something comes up. And
well, it's cool that I really admire that you were able to balance both and get it to the point where it's like, all right, like I need to do this now, because, you know, obviously you want to do that. You want to do more of the artwork, but you also want to make sure you have a workload that's going to, you know, keep you paid and keep you busy.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I had to learn the hard way on that one, but I it's really admirable though, that you were able to balance that, because that in its own, you know, balancing two different lifestyles, because, you know, you got to management and work with people, and like that's a whole entity on its own. But to
I think that's what
both.
slows up a lot of people, and you're really good about like the business side of it, which I think that just throws off so many people. It's like, I just don't want to deal with the but I really like that's crucial. Return email sucks, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of artists that are like pretty introverted, and you know, you just got to get out there and just talk to people about, you know, your art. I mean, just explain what you're passionate about. I think people pick up on that, you know.
Mm-hmm. One of the, I guess, I'm pretty sure you probably see me post about the digital business cards. That's one thing I'm always like sharing with people that ask me for advice.
Oh yeah, I've got one of those. Yeah.
And that's one thing I tell a lot of people is it's a good way to start a conversation, or at least finish a conversation when someone's interested in your work. Is, you know, mention, hey, I got a digital business card. You get on a first name basis, exchange information. Now you got a potential client, and it helps you build those social skills and sales skills too. If you want to get information out.
And that's what I think we've talked about this, where like, you know, there's the art classes, and you see people that go to art school, but they don't ever tell them the business side of art, which is, you know, a huge part of it, is being able to you can be a talented artist, but if you don't know how to get your stuff out there, or, you know, get it in places, you know, you're really out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I forget the book that I read, like extremely early on. It was like, I can't remember if it was Artworks or the mystique of selling artwork.
Is it an orange book?
I think that's Artworks.
Yeah.
The one I had is like this. He's from San Antonio. Crud, what is his name? He's like this good old boy, kind of like cowboy guy from San Antonio. Ah, shoot, he's got a street here named after him too. I'll think of it in a minute. But that was really good as far as like, I think one of the big things I took away from his book was like set goals.
Mm-hmm.
And like have something to aim for. So early on, my first goal was like, I want to make, I don't know what it was, like 35,000 in sales, and it just seemed like so beyond my grasp. And then, you start looking at it like a business, like what do I have to do to obtain this goal, and then you just
kind of happens.
Yeah, you just have to aim towards it. And there's some days, you know, you're just like, I just didn't say no to any job, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, can you do a watercolor of, like, I don't really do watercolors, but sure, like, you know, or whatever.
Gotta hit that goal.
Yeah, charity auction or whatever it was, and you know, but I think establishing what you want as an artist early on is also part of it too. Like some people maybe don't want to pursue it as a full-time career, which is fine if that's what you want. And you know, some people want it as a business, and so you know, you can paint Texas bluebonnet scenes all day long and sell them all day long if that's what you want to do. But if you're, you know, I guess just establishing your goal is kind of like,
yeah, because I think we both see like a lot of people that say that they want to execute a specific goal that's definitely they're fully capable of to do within a year, but then they're not really applying themselves or doing those little things to get there. They just kind of, I guess, assume it's going to happen out of thin air or something.
Yeah.
Get a lot of those people that are like, yeah, you know, I want to do this. And then when you ask them, like, well, what are you doing to make that happen? And they're, oh, well, I'm just creating art. But it's just like,
blow your mind. Like, yeah, just do it, man. Like,
it's crazy. Well, so was that one of your goals within like your first year of, you know, doing your art full time? Was it to make that much money, or like what were some of your first year goals that you had for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time money was my goal. I mean, it kind of pains me to say that now, just because I think artistically it's kind of rough to say that, just to be like, yeah, money was a driving force in my art. But I think the way I looked at it at the time was, you know, if I design enough t-shirts or whatever odd job it is, that's that much more money that I can put towards, you know, my real true passion project. And in the meantime, I'm getting a little better, you know, practicing my skills, and I'm getting paid to draw and work on composition, you know, it's bare minimum. You know, if it was a college course, I would be paying to learn some of that stuff. So that's kind of how I looked at it, is, you know, I'm just not going to say no to anything.
Yeah, I had to do that. One of my goals within my first year was to sell one painting for $1,000. It wasn't to make like X amount of money. I told myself, if I could sell one painting for $1,000 within my first year, I'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think that whole year like going up to like almost the end of the full year, I had sold paintings. I think the most I had sold a painting for leading up to this one last sale right before the year ended was like $350. Well, then like in December of that year, I sold a painting for $700 with the bundle of 4 other paintings that the total ended up being $1,500. So I remember telling myself, I just had the biggest sale of my life. At that time I was like, this is the biggest sale of my life. And I had sold a painting for $700, and I remember telling myself like, hey, like it's $300 shy of $1,000. Like I wouldn't even imagine. Like I saw it vividly in my head, like that I could accomplish it. Mm-hmm. But it seemed so far fetched that it was like, man, like I'm probably gonna almost be dead, when that happens. But I saw it being possible.
No, but it's still a goal rather than just being like, I don't know, I just kind of want to sell some art. It's like I want to sell this specific amount, and then whenever you get it, then you go, okay, what's the next one?
Yeah. So I had to reevaluate. Like even though I got close to it, I told myself, okay, well if I could get close to 1,000 next, like going into 2016, I want to sell one painting for 2,000. And always reevaluating yourself and setting goals that you could exceed. Like you don't want to set goals that are like impossible, which is cool to do that too, but you also want to exceed goals that are like doable, but instead of just doing them, like exceed them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like just setting the goal is like part of it. But set, like don't make it easy on, like, not easy, but just give yourself something to like break a sweat,
mm-hmm.
to get to. And I think doing that, you grow.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
So what are some of your next projects or next shows that you have coming up?
So I'm at the Impact Guild right now. I've got a couple paintings up, some oil paintings. I'm trying to like really work on my oil paintings. I've got a couple commissions for some brass canvas, the bullet stuff, going on. I got a gallery that stocks those in California, so I got to kind of re-up on those. I don't know, I'm just kind of all over the place, but as far as here in San Antonio, the Impact Guild, and then I'm doing some stuff with the San Antonio Street Art Initiative. Yeah. And that's cool to be a part of, man. Like you're there painting beside somebody else, and just, I don't know. I feel like San Antonio's on the upswing. It's really cool to be a part of, mm-hmm. just being that part of the creative flow in San Antonio, and people taking note and going like, man, this place is really cool. Like I thought Austin was where it's at. No, it's in San Antonio.
Yeah,
man.
Shout out to the San Antonio Street Art Initiative, Shaq, Los Otros, the whole team out there. Are, bringing artists together and kind of helping San Antonio shine in Texas, because like Texas' largest mural or outdoor gallery, what they're saying that it is. So they're doing a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So you have your show at the Impact Guild that's up right now?
Yeah, and that's kind of appointment only, but reach out and I'll get you in. We'll go look at it.
Yeah, so be sure to reach out to Matt. And okay, so you told me you're starting to dabble a little bit more in oils. That's one thing that you've been working on a lot more. So what was, like, how did that come to be? Like, were you always working in acrylics and just recently you decided like, hey, I'm going to just switch it up to oils too? Or
oils just like so daunting to me. I just wasn't ever exposed to it, and it just seems so, like, you go down that aisle at the art store, mm-hmm. and it's just like all this like varnishes and these different things. You're like, I don't know, do I need peanut oil? Like, yeah, it's just so overwhelming. And I never had an education, like an art education course of any kind, and so I don't know, you just kind of get to a point where you want to challenge yourself. And like my eyes were crossed for like a good month. I started doing some like color theory stuff with this. His name's Phil Bob Boardman. He's up in Fredericksburg, but mm-hmm. I just watched him paint, and he taught me some stuff over the course of about a month, and like my mind just. And
like, you went to the Capini too, right?
Not too many classes. I took one class about a month ago.
With Tony Pro?
Yeah, I still need to pay him for that class too, by the way, if he's listening.
Hey, no, but shout out to Tony Pro. That guy's doing like
awesome.
so many amazing things too. And if you don't know Tony Pro, get familiar with him. He's like an amazing artist and he's doing amazing things too.
He makes it look easy, and he shares with you. Like, it's one thing to be talented; it's another thing to be talented and able to teach. And he is an awesome teacher.
I think also too with having a studio at the Millworks, you're like surrounded by like so many like super talented artists, and everyone's always good with sharing information. Like Steve DeLuce, dude, I learned so much from that guy. Like I always like giving him shout outs whenever we're talking about like art education, because
I was in his studio last week just doing the same thing, just soaking it up. So I was like, oh, I need to take notes on this.
Yeah, dude, and I would do that too, and he would stop and he was like, am I boring you? I'm like, no, Steve, like keep talking. Like this
is a TED Talk, man. I'd pay money for this. This is a college lecture. Like, yeah, he's awesome. Like, there's a whole group, and that's something that I didn't realize I was missing out on, just painting in my little, extra spare bedroom at my house, is that cross-pollinating with other artists is, there's a lot of good stuff there's a lot of good stuff that happens whenever you mingle with other artists, and, there's a lot about getting in with the Millworks that I look back on, I'm like, that was really, there's a lot of things that you can't really put on a paper that I've benefited from at that place, that I'm just like, like talking to Steve or, Gary Williamson next door, and it's like, you just kind of cross-pollinate, even if it's not somebody working on oils or brass or whatever, you just kind of like, hey man, I don't know, does this look good, or how would you do, composition-wise, you go talk to Jennifer Crowder or Monica, what's Monica's last name? Monica Saldana?
I think so. I'm bad with names. But shout out to Monica.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just talking to like photographers, be like, I don't know, like, is this like compositionally, like, would you move this element over here? And, I don't know, it's just kind of cool. They're still creative and have an eye for that kind of thing, but it's coming from a different expertise level, which is kind of.
Shout out to everybody at the Millworks, and shout out to Rex Hausman.
Yeah,
for
Hausman Millworks,
holding it down.
So
it's a hidden gem.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell the people a little bit about where they could find you, and social media, stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's Matt Tumlinson. On most of my accounts, Tumlinson is Tumlinson. Pretty unique last name, so pretty easy to find. I try to keep up with all my recent stuff on my Instagram, and just whatever I'm working on at the time. I got Tumlinson Art is my website, and that's kind of like a portfolio of just a pretty good mix of everything that I do. But I try to, I don't know, just keep putting something new up every week, whether it's, something that I'm doodling, which actually you recommended just keeping a notebook on you, and just whatever it is, just try to doodle something every day. And I think that's been a good way to like be limber artistically, is like, whatever, like just
when you were in New York, you were going off in New York.
Yeah,
that was cool to see.
Yeah, that was I don't know, New York's a trip, man. That was
yeah, New York was crazy. How was your New York experience?
I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more in my early 20s, like whenever you're like willing to just like sleep wherever and just like, I'm just here experiencing life. And then I was good with New York the first like 6 days, and then the last 2 I was kind of like, I'm out of money, like everything just kind of it was like dimmed a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. Like the energy, like you always hear, was like pretty cool, but I could also see where like it would be a really cold place.
Well, then I think what was cool too, like, you're going off on your sketchbook, you're posting lots of pictures of, what you were inspired by, and, it showed in your work, and it was all very beautiful. And then, towards the end, we ended up reconnecting at the show that we're all there for, and you told us the story about the Impractical Jokers.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I told you about that, man.
I was super cool that you were able to like just see that happening. Like, you see it on TV and you're thinking like, oh, it's probably all scripted, but like you firsthand.
Yeah, that was... Dude, so I told you, like, the first part of that, right? Like, the preamble of the guy. I don't know. I always have these stories where I just talk to everybody, and for better, for worse.
Yeah.
And I think it comes across as flirting sometimes. I don't know, like, I'm just curious, and I like talking to people.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're in the village in New York, or the village in New York, and it's like late at night. We're in Washington Square Park, like the epicenter of the start of the gay rights movement is like 4 blocks away. I just got done seeing like a great comedy show at the Comedy Cellar. I'm just hanging out. I'm in New York. I'm listening to like this band perform. I'm just like, this is a great night. The weather was perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on this park bench by myself. Just probably a sign in hindsight. And this guy just sits down, starts making conversation. And it's like an hour-long conversation, man. Like we go, like we talk about some deep stuff.
Yeah.
And then, like 45 minutes in, he just happens to mention that he's gay. And, but it wasn't like he was like hitting on me. He just like was like sharing some personal information about you. You know? And you're like, oh man, this guy's opening up. Like you start seeing like the beauty and just like, oh, we're all just human beings and we all just want to connect with people.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you want to go out for a beer later? And I'm like at this point, I'm like, is this flirting? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't do this if this was like a girl that asked me out for a beer.
Yeah.
And I was like, better err on the side. I was like, no, but thank you for like thinking that I was cool enough to hang out with.
Yeah.
And so we both like go our separate ways. And I call my wife and I'm like, hey, tell me if this is weird. Tell her the whole story. She's like, I don't know. Maybe he was just lonely and whatever. And I was just like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I just had a weird feeling. I was like, oh.
Well, you got to go with those feelings, though. Like, you just go with that gut feeling, and because
I don't know. So we ended up back at his place. Yeah. So like 2 days later, I'm still there. I've got like 4 hours before my flight. I'm like, I'm out of money. I'm just gonna go sit at the park and watch people. Like it's cheap.
Yeah.
Just sit at the park, eat pizza, and just watch people. And I'm sitting here, and so I avoided it for 2 days. I didn't want to see this guy. I didn't want to have an awkward conversation. Like, you said you were busy and you couldn't go have it. And I see him, and he's like laying out with this guy who's wearing just a Speedo. He's like rubbing sunscreen on him. And at first I'm like, oh, good for him. He found somebody. And then I'm like, oh no, he was totally cruising the park for dudes. And I feel like taken advantage of. Like, I was like, I thought we had a moment. And then I noticed, like, he's rubbing sunscreen on this guy, but then he's, like, starts to rub, like, a lot of sunscreen on this guy. Like, a lot. Like, covered. And the sunscreen's, like, not rubbing in. Like, it's just white. And I'm like, that is way too... And then I start looking, and I'm like, oh, I recognize the guy who's rubbing sunscreen on. And I'm like, that's the guy from Impractical Jokers. And at the time I was on the phone with somebody, I was like, hey, I gotta call you back. I gotta take a picture real quick. And I go to take a picture... It was like the Secret Service. There was like these like perimeter. It was like these people with like earbuds in. They were like, "Hey, please don't take pictures. We're filming right now." It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm so sorry." And you start looking around, and there's like wires and all kinds of stuff everywhere. You're like, "Oh, they're filming right now. This is crazy." Like I'm in the episode, so eventually, they all pop out, and me being, I don't know, whatever. I was like just in the background, just pacing. Like, I'm gonna get on TV, man.
Did you ever see that episode?
I don't know. I hadn't aired yet, or like I don't know.
Probably couldn't use it because you're all in the shots.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut all this. That weird guy in the back is. Oh, what's going on?
That's pretty funny though. You get to like that story is something. You could tell like forever.
It's weird how small that place is, though. Like, just
it's weird. Like, yeah, like walking a mile in San Antonio is like 10 minutes, but walking a mile in New York is like 30 minutes. It's crazy. It's weird. But
like, it kind of like it really feels like the center of the world. Like you can walk 2 blocks and like somebody see your stuff and that can make you. Like that's what was cool about New York is that like it really felt like. Yeah, anything can happen here because, like, this is the capital of the world. Like everything that's going to happen is going to happen the best here.
Here, yeah.
But I don't know. It's still crazy though. I think I missed my window.
Is there any like next trips that you have for maybe like you and your family or any? Because you just got back from a trip too, right? Weren't you gone for like a week or something?
Yeah, man. I was in Alaska.
Dang.
Yeah, I was part of this. So my uncle that owns the gun range, whenever I first started doing this bullet thing, I was like, hey, I need to pay you for all these shells that I'm using. Like it's brass, like it's material. You could sell this and make money off of it. And he was real cool. He's always been real cool. Like, don't worry about it. I was like, no, I'm gonna pay you something just so it's not weird that I'm always asking for this. And he was like, all right, well, if you sell, this much, then we'll go on a hunting trip. And I was like, okay, sure. And I think he forgets about it until 5 years later he calls me and is like, hey, I got a hunting trip. And I'm thinking like, all right, like West Texas, like go hunt for something over there. And he's like, it's in Alaska. It's like, okay. What's in Alaska? What do you hunt for in Alaska? And again, I'm not a huge hunter.
Was it like moose or something?
There's caribou, which is like a wild reindeer. But
aren't they huge?
Yeah, they're pretty big. They're like a mule deer, and but I don't know. It was cool. Like I try to be a yes person as much as possible, and so whether or not I was gonna shoot something, I was like, yeah, I'll go. And so I ended up not actually bringing. I brought a fishing pole and a bunch of oil paints.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, but we were out in like the as far north in Alaska as you can go, and then we took. Truck an hour from there, and then a boat an hour from there, and we were just out in the tundra of Alaska, and I just
camping.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they dropped us off, and
that must have been scary as hell.
It wasn't that bad, man. It was
bears and freaking.
Really, I mean, I had like a big pistol while I was painting, but I hadn't seen bears in a while, and so.
Camping in the tundra of Alaska. You just say like all nonchalant. I guess camping in the tundra of Alaska.
We don't have as much talent. You got to make up for it with like gimmicks like that. Like nobody's ever painted out here. I'm gonna paint looking over my shoulder for bear.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went a week and it was so cold. It rained the whole time. The weather sucked. It was a great trip, like just for the experience. Like I'd do it again for sure. But
did y'all get anything? Like what?
We went with a group of 6 guys. And one guy got stuff. Like it rained so much the river flooded. Like it was just kind of one of those type of trips. I don't think I've ever been on a camping trip where it didn't rain.
Yeah.
But it's soul searching, man. You do some like introspective times, and like I don't know, like that's long car rides. I talk to myself, and like I don't know how. Where do you get your inspiration? Like what's your like? Where do you do your best thinking? I guess.
Definitely here in the studio, or not like in my dreams. Like
really?
I've had like these really vivid, like the Wabi Sabi series came from a dream. Like
really,
I'm really quick to like wake up and like write and sketch stuff down that I dreamed about. Like I had this weird experience one day where one night I had this dream that me and Caroline were driving in a Ferrari with Drake talking about art. And we went to go eat at this place called Quadro. It was I think it was like Italian. And like I remember the logo of this restaurant just being like really like crazy looking. And I ended up waking up writing about this dream, sketching like this logo that I saw. And turns out Quadro, the way that it's spelled, this word meant drawing in Italian.
Whoa, that's really cool, man. Like
yeah, like it was really weird, but like if I wouldn't have like just left that alone, who knows what that would have like I remind myself about these dreams. Like I have like journals and sketchbooks that are just like these rough sketches that I just jot down and turn the next page. But eventually, what I'll do is I'll look through stuff and I'll be like, oh, hey, like it'll come back to me really vividly, and I'll be like, hey, I could, do something with that. But with the Wabi Sabis, So inspiration's coming from dreams. I had this dream of these colors, like, I had saw the Henry Matisse color cutouts in New York and Philadelphia, and the night we came back from my trip, I had this dream that I'm in the studio in the Millworks, and these colors start floating down from the ceiling, and they all float down onto a canvas. And when all the colors were done floating down, just like imagine the painting but without the black outline. So in my dream, all these colors are on the canvas floats up in the air, and I grab a paintbrush in my dream, and right when I'm about to start painting, I wake up. And the next morning I take Caroline to go eat breakfast at Blue Star Brewing Company, and we're eating breakfast, and I'm telling her about this dream, and I'm drawing on this napkin, and I drew the very first, wabi sabi, which then I called it Sunday morning because I woke up Sunday morning and I drew this image from my dream, and it turned into like one of my most successful series. And I continue to focus on putting myself in this like meditative state before I go to sleep, and I try to get to this point of REM sleep like fairly fast when I go to sleep, and I try to get a lot of my inspirations from my dreams.
Yeah, well, I feel like too though, like just because it is kind of in your subconscious, like you're forever like trying to interpret like what's the significance of it to me, like why,
Mm-hmm.
like it seems like there's a lot that you can dig up and like explore, which is pretty cool.
And I have so much stuff in, like I have you can look over there. I have so many sketchbooks, and Caroline's always telling me, go to those sketchbooks, like draw what's in those sketchbooks, like the Pegasus piece that a lot of people really love. It's like actually put away, but a lot of people love it. That came from my sketchbook, and there's so many more that are in these sketchbooks that are probably going to be really great paintings when I get to that point. But
it is cool though, just like capture that little like even like it's just like a nugget of an idea though, and it's like, well, it started here, but that wasn't really what it turned into, but it just got my brain thinking about. But like if you can, I need to do that more, just write stuff down.
But that's the importance of the sketchbooks, and I think especially when I told you for the first time, I was like, yeah, dude, this helped me tremendously. But just by adding, some paper in my pocket with a pencil, and not being hard on myself with, oh, this is gonna look good, or just
that's what
letting
I
it
get
out.
Away from is like I get so focused on this that I want to capture the feeling, and like that's kind of it's like I always assume that I'm going to show it to somebody. It's like, it's not about showing it to somebody. It's about capturing what you're thinking and the feeling before you get bogged down in is his hand too big, proportionate to...
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of, I don't know, I'm always curious where, like, I know where your inspiration comes from is always a real loaded, deep question, but it's kind of interesting, like, I don't know if inspiration is the right word, but, like, where you reflect on your artwork or try to figure out where it comes from, or like what led to a piece. I guess that is in some way inspiration, but I don't know. I feel like mine is usually a long drive, and I'm just like kind of in a meditative state, watching the road, just thinking. Like a lot of times I don't even have a radio or anything on, and it's just like, why do I think this way about this thing? And then just kind of think about that in your head, and I don't know, to me it always comes out as a visual image, and I know, like some people it probably comes out as songs or writing or sculpture or whatever, but...
So it's usually when you're driving?
Yeah, for the most part. It's usually driving. I feel like I can't do anything else, like my mind has to do this thing. I can't multitask, or, I'm not tempted by TV or whatever, but it's just kind of... thinking about whatever's going on, or you see something that sparks and you go, oh, that's, and then you're off, like.
I had a conversation with this one artist from here in San Antonio. She's an amazing artist, forgot her name, but she has a studio over there off of Broadway. You probably seen it. It has like an eye on the building, blue eye. It's near Travis Maverick Park. Forgot her name, but amazing artist.
On our names,
yeah,
I know exactly. Is it who does the? I can't remember.
But she's an amazing artist, sculptor, does everything. Well, anyways, we were talking about, inspiration and where a lot of her good ideas come from. And she was saying that when we drive, we're using I believe it was like the left side of our brain, because it's like a automatic process of driving.
Yeah.
So when you're driving and you're not listening to anything, it's like when you're driving and you're focused on driving, but then you start having these conversations with yourself, you're unlocking the other half of your brain. So you're kind of putting yourself
keeping one like entertained while you're doing the
so it's like you're getting to this state where like all these ideas are just flowing in between your brain, because you're going off like your body is in this motion, like you see a green light or whatever white lines, you're gonna just kind of just go off. And when you start having these conversations with yourself, or at least thinking about ideas, like you're just using your whole brain, and it's a good way to just like unlock these ideas or the subconscious.
Everybody just always thinks I'm stoned all the time. And I don't smoke.
So you're just driving out, listening to music, just soaking out.
I'll call people with random questions like, dude, what do you think about? I'm like, are you high? I'm like, no, I don't smoke. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what I'd be like if I smoked.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know. You could get an adjusted mortgage rate on or like talk about cleaning out shit out of your gutters or something boring. It's like, I feel like I can get there without being there at this point. I don't know. I'd be totally off the deep end, maybe. I don't know.
That's funny, man.
But yeah,
dude. So we're going for an hour and 6 minutes. This is your first podcast, so that went by That went by pretty fast, dude.
Sorry, man. I'll get going.
No, dude, it's great. I think this is a great episode. So one more time, tell people where they could find you on your website.
Well, in San Antonio, if you're listening to it in San Antonio, you can see my work at St. Mary's. You got George Strait there. I've got one off Fredericksburg, the Sexy Davy Crockett, the Dakota East Side Ice House. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
They're awesome people. I've got a mural over there. They've hosted some of your stuff.
Yep.
And Caroline's. The Impact Guild right now has got some of my stuff up. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on my website, tumlinsonart.com. And if you see me painting in San Antonio, just come say hi.
Oh, and plug in your Instagram too.
Oh yeah,
make sure you tag them.
Matt.Tumlinson, Matt_Tumlinson. And you can come talk to me. I'll try not to talk for an hour, but you might just have to break it off.
Tight. So once again, everybody, it's me, Albert Gonzales. I want to thank you all for listening, and thank you for watching. It was a great episode, Matt. It was awesome having you here.
Likewise, man.
So
really
if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Trebla, TREBLA_art, or you can visit my website, Albert Gonzales Art. And now also be sure to follow the podcast Instagram, which is Trebla_art_podcast. So once again, Matt, thank you so much.
No, thank
Appreciate
you,
having you here.
It was awesome.
And peace out, everyone. Peace out, everyone. Peace out, everyone. Peace out, everyone. Peace out, everyone.